Well, sad news overnight with the death of Rolling Stones legend Charlie Watts. The 80-year-old had played with the Stones for nearly 6 decades, helping them become one of the greatest bands in the world.
Let's bring in entertainment reporter Sam Rubin in Los Angeles. Sam, nice to see you this morning. He was really the backbone of the band, wasn't he? But he never liked the limelight.
Good to see you both, Ali. Good morning to you. They said that he was the best timekeeper of any of the legendary rock and roll drummers, joining the Rolling Stones in 1963 for a gig that he thought would last 1 year. It lasted a lot longer than that. He had been in ill health as of late, and we learned overnight he died in a London hospital. So 80 years old, an extraordinary life, the quietest, the least well-known of the Rolling Stones, but arguably the most respected.
I mean, it's still a surprise to me that Keith Richards hasn't gone years ago, given Keith's life. The tributes, though, are flowing thick and fast, aren't they, from the entertainment world and kings of the entertainment world.
Absolutely. You know what's interesting is it's not only the quantity of tributes. That happens a lot now in the era of social media. It is the quality of these tributes, from Ringo Starr. God bless Charlie Watts. We're going to miss you. Love and peace to family Ringo. It is others who spoke of his particular ability. Let's hear from Duran Duran. A very sad day. Charlie Watts was the ultimate drummer. That's Elton John. So sad to hear about the passing of Charlie Watts. An absolute inspiration to a legion of drummers since the 1960s. And these words you're hearing again and again, a man of grace, style, dignity, and composure. No matter what song the Stones played, it always had a deep groove. People keep talking about the texture of their music and the thickness of the music, and that was, in fact, Charlie Watts. Keith Urban. I didn't even know you properly, Keith wrote, but he goes on to describe Charlie as an extraordinary drummer. And I tell you, there are other people who are drummers in the rock and roll world who talk about this. Here he goes. I didn't even properly know you, but I love you, Charlie, and I thank you for all that you gave us. I'm so grateful that through countless recordings, we'll always be not only hearing you, but feeling you. That's the whole thing. You know, it's the unsung hero of the rock and roll song. The drum beat is everything. And look here in this casual at-home video. He's just playing the dobro, but he's, you know, awfully, awfully good.
And it's, I mean, just reading about him too this morning, as you say, I mean, he hated the limelight, as we said. I think he used the words, he found it draining, he found it frightening. He just loved to be at home with his horses and sitting in his garage with his cars. Oh, his white horse. You know, sitting with his cars that he collected, even though he can't drive. But we sort of got a hint that he wasn't very well, didn't we, when he pulled out of the upcoming US tour? But I don't know if any of us had an idea that he was this unwell.
Precisely right, Ali. There are other concerts that over the years he backed away from and did not participate in, but he announced that this tour in its totality, including a still scheduled mid-October date here in Los Angeles, that he would not go, that he was in the hospital. He described recovering from a procedure. We don't know what that was, but frankly and sadly, he never recovered. He never left the hospital. He had made that announcement in early August, and now towards the end of the month we discover with family at his bedside. Again, father, husband, grandfather. Charlie Watts loved not only by, you know, the enclave of his family, but deeply loved and respected by the world of rock and roll.
Just looking now at the Stones tours, I think they're in the US and the state of St. Louis in September, so it's not far away. That tour of the US no doubt will continue, and the show, as they say, will go on. But terrific tribute, Sam, from you today. Appreciate it. Good on you.
Thanks, Sam.
Really, really well thought of. So we'll miss Charlie Watts.
Good on you, mate. Thank you. So let's bring in Night Entertainment editor and Weekend Today presenter, all-conquering Richard Wilkins. So good morning to you, Dickie.
Good morning.
You would have, over the years, interviewed Charlie a number of times. Tell us about your response today.
Well, it's a sad day. You know, he was such a lovely guy, such a great drummer. Just, you know, we'll get to that. But just a lovely, lovely man. You know, married to the same woman since 1964. Imagine being married to the same person for 57 years. He had 3 great loves in his life: Shirley, his horses, and this band, the Rolling Stones.
And his children. I think he loved his children.
He loved his kids too. But, you know, he was just a lovely fella, so stylish and elegant.
Yeah.
And he had his roots in jazz. You know, he was, first and foremost, he was a jazz musician who fell in with this motley crew and, you know, formed one of the greatest rock and roll bands of all time. And he had this big jazz group, which was his side. But he hadn't been well for some time. In fact, the Stones are doing a US tour that kicks off on September 26 in St. Louis. He was not going to be on that tour. He hadn't been well.
It was a big thing for him to even come over and stoop to the lowness of rock and roll, and even with a band like with the Rolling Stones. But you spoke to him how long ago? When was the last time you spoke?
I think in about 5, 6 years ago, when they were doing this exhibitionism tour with. They weren't on the road. You know, how smart are they? They put all their stuff on tour.
Yes.
All their clothes and costumes, and they recreated the apartment they all lived in. And we did this, and the first stop of that was the Saatchi Gallery in the King's Road in London. And we went over there and did some interviews. Here's just a little snippet of that experience.
We decided to get some of our old stuff and new out, and we're going to have an exhibition, and it's called...
Exhibitionism.
Yeah, exhibitionism. It's all about me, and I'm the star, for once. We've had this idea for a long while, but not actually this, but just putting something, or using up what of the stuff we have in the vaults and that. But it's come together quite nicely, I think. At least I hope people like it. It looks good to me.
Oh.
It's interesting, isn't it? Like, to think how long he was with that band for, how successful they were. Yet he was a man who hated fame. He hated the girls hanging around. He hated everything that went with it other than the music.
He was a musician's musician. You know, ask any drummer and they will tell you that Charlie Watts was one of the greatest players, and it was his style of playing. You know, he always played just slightly behind the beat, if that makes any sense to you. But that, along with Keith's playing and Mick out front, you know, really gave the Stones their sound. And look, I brought in a pair of drumsticks just to show you, because, you know, he held his stick,
like a
left-hand
jazz
stick, like a jazz drummer, for his snare drum, which, you know, most people just hold them like that these days. But he was old school and just brilliant and so loved. And, you know, he and Keith called the band their band, you know, because when Bill Wyman left, it was their band. You know, Ronnie Woods was a blow, and he only joined in 1975.
Yeah.
And Mick was out front doing whatever he did. But, you know, it was their band, and they just loved it, and there was so much soul in it.
So tell me about that, because I'm sure they'd, even though it's not entirely unexpected, it has been a long time for them all together.
Oh.
They were incredibly close, despite some fractious times. Incredibly tight unit.
Yeah, very tight. I mean, he in the 80s, he sort of ran off the rails a little bit and dabbled in, you know, he hit it pretty hard back in the 80s, and he said, you know, it nearly cost him his marriage and nearly cost him his life. But they're so close, well, were so close. And, you know, but the show must go on, as I heard you say earlier. You know, this tour, completely sold out American tour. I think the world needs a Rolling Stones tour.
Yeah.
And to see them on stage, it'll be the best possible tribute to Charlie Watts, to see the Rolling Stones up on stage, and I'm sure they'll pay their respects.
What's your favourite Stones song?
Oh, Tumbling Dice.
Oh,
Wild Horses.
Wild Horses is
Too many
great.
to mention.
Well, hearing the backstory to that one. But what a beautiful tribute you reckon that this tour will be, and I imagine he'll be front and centre in one way.
Beautiful guy, Muso's Muso. One of the best of all time.
Yeah.
Beautiful stuff, Dickie. Thank you for coming in.
Pleasure.
Just give us a little 1-2 before you go.
Fail.
There you go. This is Today on 9.